You missed your alarm. It's time to get up. You're now entering Dreamland. Hi, everyone. Welcome to Now Entering Dreamland, a podcast about dreams, sleep, and everything in between. My name is Stacey Axler, and I'm your host. Welcome back to those of you who have been to Dreamland before. I'm happy to have you back, and welcome to those of you joining us for the first time. Also, to everyone listening, welcome to 2021. We've made it. Oh my goodness, I am so happy it's a new year of the podcast. This is the first episode of 2021. I think we can all agree that 2020 was, frankly, just simply terrible. And I hope to everyone listening and also everyone, just general, everyone, that this year brings you much health and much happiness. At the very least, more health and happiness than the previous year has given us. So, as I said, this is the first episode of 2021. I'm happy about this because, one, it's a new year. Hooray. But also, we've been doing the podcast since last fall, so we really have come a long way, and I'm really happy about that. But it's a new episode, and with that, this is not going to be an interview style episode. This is going to be a solo episode where I talk about a part of sleep that interests me. And I stagger these episodes throughout the interview style ones. For this one, I am going to be talking about nightmares. Every single person has had at least one nightmare in their life. I'm sure we all would want to forget about it, but unfortunately, it's true. Since I've been interviewing people for this podcast since around September, I've noticed some commonalities between a lot of the nightmares I talk to people about. And that was a little bit interesting to me, simply because I always thought my dreams were very unique. And a lot of my dreams are unique, but there's some common themes that I found between not only the nightmares that I have and what other people have, but also just some of the nightmares that other people have told me through these interviews, people that don't even know each other, or, they peripherally know each other, but they're not good friends. If they were, I'd say, okay, that makes sense. There's some type of group think going on, but there are some common nightmares. So for this episode of Now Entering Dreamland, I'm going to be talking about nightmares, and I'm going to be doing a deeper dive into 3 common nightmares. So let's just get the ball rolling. Nightmares. What's the deal? What's the deal with them? Well, I want to begin by saying I'm not a doctor and I'm not a scientist, but from the research I've done, and I am still doing, there really isn't a scientifically based, 100% true reason as to why we have nightmares. There's been a lot of studies done about this. There are a lot of theories. So here are some of the theories that I've read about in resources like Psychology Today and Healthline, for example. Something that keeps coming up to me is stress, anxiety. Stress and anxiety are huge factors into the dreams that we have and also just the quality of sleep we get. So I think that makes 100% total logical sense to me. If you're under a lot of stress, if you're under a lot of anxiety, your dreams become worse. That really resonates with me. One of the reasons why I started this project was because I noticed a lot of people started talking about stressful COVID dreams they were having back this past March and April after we all kind of locked down here in America. And that's kind of what started getting me thinking about this project was I've had nightmares basically throughout my whole life, but a lot of people were having very, very vivid nightmares, at least people I spoke to, centering around COVID. And that makes sense. It was a time of great stress, huge uncertainty. A lot of my friends actually lost their job or their employment situation changed. So definitely time of great stress for everyone. So it makes sense. A lot of people's sleep was impacted by that. So stress, anxiety can cause nightmares. I remember being a child and my third grade teacher, her name, if I'm remembering correctly, was Miss Slattery. She told us that, and she wasn't even our health teacher, she was just our regular teacher, but she told us when we were kids to not eat junk food late at night because it would cause nightmares. And I thought that that was just joke science. And around that time, I was about 8 years old at the time, I saw an episode of the cartoon Hey Arnold. I don't know if there are any other 90s kids listening to this, but I watched Hey Arnold, and there's an episode of that cartoon in which one of the main characters, her name is Helga, she eats a bag of pork rinds before bed, and then she begins to sleepwalk and have nightmares and have a lot of other sleep issues because of these pork rinds. And from doing research for this podcast, I realized this is not joke science. This is true. Apparently, if you eat before you go to sleep or before your usual bedtime, it will kind of activate or speed up your metabolism. And when your metabolism speeds up, it sends signals to your brain kind of saying, okay, we need to be active right now. So that actually could be a cause of your nightmares. So that's actually a good reminder for me to not eat a bunch of Oreos before bed, which I am known to sometimes do. So that's talking about some of the causes of nightmares, but let's talk about 3 common nightmares that I've spoken to people about throughout this podcast. Maybe you have experienced these too. Number 1, this has come up in a bunch of my interviews, dreams about falling. So I've had this nightmare quite a few times, and mine I thought was kind of unique. And I actually, throughout my interviews, I haven't spoken to anyone who had this particular type of falling nightmare. So when I dream about it, it's usually right when I first go to sleep, and I don't know how I get up there, but I'm immediately on top of a building, usually a very high skyscraper. And I'm on the edge of the building, kind of standing on a ledge. But I feel safe, I feel secure. I'm an adult. I'm not a particularly clumsy person. Actually, I am kind of clumsy, but I feel secure. And I'm looking over the edge of the building, but I don't feel scared that I'm going to fall over. I trust myself. But suddenly, I feel a presence behind me. I just feel like something is right behind me. So I turn around, and there's a person that's standing very close to me, like not even inches away. We're almost face to face, with our faces touching. We're that close together. So I get really startled about this, and I step back. And because I'm so startled, I don't realize that stepping back is not a good thing to do. There's nowhere to step back. I'm on a ledge. So I step back. I basically step back onto air. And at that point, I'm waving my arms. I'm trying to get the balance I need to remain back on the ledge. But I always fail. I always fall over the back. And then as I'm falling, I jerk awake. That's the falling nightmare that I have. A lot of the people I've spoken to, this has come up in about 4 or 5 of my dream interviews. A lot of the people that I've spoken to have falling nightmares where they actually just fall off a cliff. They're driving a car and they'll actually just drive off a road, or maybe it's a combination of those 2 things. They'll drive off a road that's on a cliff and then the road just ends and then they're flying off the cliff, kind of Thelma and Louise style. So falling dreams are actually very common for both adults and children to have. At least that's what I've read. And it could mean that you're really, really scared about something. You feel uncertain about something. You don't feel like you trust yourself. You kind of feel like the ground underneath you, nothing's stable. And that makes sense to me. Just me thinking about times in my life that I've had this dream. Definitely have felt like those times in my life I've lacked some stability. one of the resources that I read actually indicated, if you're falling off a cliff in a dream and you're falling into water, take a moment to try to remember what color the water was. Was it dark and murky? If that's the case, maybe in your mind your future is really murky. Maybe the decision you have to make, it's not a clear one for you to make. Whenever I have my falling dreams and I wake up, my whole body kind of gyrates, it just jerks. And at first, I thought that, again, this was just something that I did. But from my research, I've realized that this is a phenomena called the hypnic jerk. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that correctly, but it's Hypnic, the hypnic jerk. And that is kind of this, you cannot control it. It's just a spontaneous, uncontrollable movement that your body makes shortly after you've fallen asleep. And I'm really glad to know about this because when I was a child around 10 or 11 and I started to have these falling dreams, I was that type of child where I thought that I was levitating. I also thought I was a witch for a time, but it's all in the past. Another common nightmare that I've spoken to people about are when your teeth fall out. This is a nightmare that's appeared in at least 4 of the dream interviews that I've done. And for me, how this nightmare kind of presents itself to me is not so much that my teeth actually are falling out of my skull. Usually in this dream, I am in an office setting and I'll stand up and I'll kind of excuse myself and I'll walk to a mirror somewhere in private and I'll open my mouth and either my teeth are already gone and I kind of get really hysterical because my teeth are gone and I don't know where they've went. Like nothing in the immediate past of my dream logic has happened that would have caused my teeth to fall out. So I open my mouth and I'm kind of in a state of, where are my teeth? My teeth were here this morning and now they're gone. I don't know where my teeth are. Someone help me find my teeth. Or my teeth are all cracked and bleeding and they look like they're crumbly, like they look like they're ancient stone ruins. But I've spoken to several people through my interviews where they talk about how their teeth physically fall out of their head in these nightmares. And it's not just one tooth that falls out, it's a bunch of teeth, like one after the other after the other. It sounds very, very scary. When you have that dream, some sources say that you could just be under a lot of stress to the point where you just feel out of control. Again, this is a through line through a lot of these nightmares. You just feel out of control about your life, about a decision you have to make. Another reason you could be having this dream could stem from jealousy. You might be jealous of another person, of what they have. You don't feel like you have enough. You don't feel like you can compete with another person. So it could be coming from a place of just like severe self-consciousness about yourself. The third nightmare that I want to talk about for this episode is the feeling of being chased or being chased by something or someone. Almost every single person that I've spoken to for this podcast has talked to me about a nightmare they've had in which they're being chased by, whether it's an unknown entity, it's a human being, or it's some type of animal or monster type of thing. I actually have a lot of chasing dreams that I experience, but in my nightmares, I typically don't know what's chasing me. Again, I feel a presence behind me, I'm trying to run away, and also for me, I do want to say, I'm usually able to outrun the thing that's chasing me. And I think that's why I don't know what that thing is, because I'm never in a position where I see the thing that's chasing me. I'm running, I outrun it, and then usually in these nightmares I hide somewhere. A lot of the people I spoke to, they have chasing dreams where the thing or the person that's chasing them does catch up to them. I think if that was the case for me, I would actually know what's chasing me, so maybe I should actually, I should let myself get Caught? I don't know. I don't know. That's something I need to think about. So what does this nightmare mean? Well, this one is actually pretty interesting because it could be a way that your brain is trying to subconsciously tell you, hey, you're running away from something. There might be something in your life that you don't want to face. So you're trying to outrun that thing. And when I think about it, I say to myself, you know what? That makes sense. There are a few things in my life I don't want to face, so it makes sense I'm leaving. So if you're having this dream, maybe take a moment and say, yeah, is there something I need to think about? It could be something in your personal life, in your work life, but there might be that one or maybe a few things that you just don't want to face. You're trying to bury it down. You're trying to keep it hidden, but it might be, mentally catching up to you. So that was a discussion about nightmares, where they come from, and what they might mean. But again, and I said this at the very beginning of the podcast, I'm not a doctor, I'm not a scientist, and I'm also not an expert in this stuff. I'm learning about this stuff because it is very interesting to me. But if you know a lot about this topic, I would love to hear from you. That's why this podcast has a comment section. So leave a comment. What do you dream about? What are your nightmares about? I know it's not fun to think about nightmares, but I am interested in learning more. And with that, that is the episode of Now Entering Dreamland, the latest episode. We release new episodes of this podcast every Sunday, so if you're liking what you're listening to, I can recommend that you subscribe. You can also visit nowenteringdreamland.com for all past episodes of this podcast and other sleep and dream related resources. You're now leaving Dreamland, but we'll see you next time.